The more you worry, the more you throw off the delicate balance of hormones required for health. Andrew J. Benston. Welcome to Living at Your Finest podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Babs. I'm a triple board certified family, obesity, and lifestyle medicine physician, and I am the founder of Living at Your Finest Wellness, a holistic direct primary care practice. Did you know that 80% of lifestyle-related chronic diseases within our communities are preventable, with poor diet being the primary culprit? Now, contrary to what we thought, that it was our unfortunate genes, the good news is that we can make changes together to improve our health and quality of life. So that's what this podcast is all about. The Living at Your Finest podcast is devoted to helping families to live at their finest well-being using a holistic approach with a healthy lifestyle to nourish and flourish as a whole, vibrant, and healthy champion. So join me and my guests as we share transformational and sustainable skill sets from our health and wellness journey to support you and your families in achieving optimal well-being. Ready to live at your finest? Well, let's get to it. Hello, health champions. Welcome back to the Living at Your Finest podcast show. We are back for another intriguing episode, and I'm so pleased that you're joining me today. I hope all is well. We are counting down to the end of 2024. I hope you are excited as I am. Well, today, the topic we'll be discussing is one that I should have discussed a while ago because I talk a lot about hormones. I talk a lot about weight loss or whether weight maintenance. So it's a very important topic, and I'm excited to dive into it because I get asked this question quite a bit. Now, have you ever felt that, if I could only just get my hormones balanced, or, you might hear, oh, it's our hormones. I know women are the ones that get this quite a bit, our hormones all the time. Whether we're in a good mood, we're in a bad mood, it's always hormones. We can blame it on men. Yeah, I mean, not so much, but, women, there's always something. So today I'm going to dive into how our hormones and which hormones actually influence weight loss or weight maintenance, because it does. And I will talk about how we can be knowledgeable and equipped so that we can avoid the yo-yoing, right? We want to be stable. So that's the discussion we're going to have today. So I hope you're ready. I hope you're ready to feel empowered and feel equipped to not blame our hormones again. All right, let's get to it. Let's start off by defining what hormones are, right? So hormones are chemical messengers that have this variety of functions, right? The main one is that it has this weight loss related bodily processes, right? So things like our metabolism, our sleep cycle, our mood, and our internal balance, known as homeostasis. So these are the chemical messengers called hormones that tend to regulate all of that. So not only the way we eat, the way we sleep, the way we exercise, experience stress can influence our hormones in our body and how we react to them. So having a better understanding about how these two intertwine and how they work together would empower us on how to feel, ready and prepared. So pretty much that's what we're going to be diving into. Okay. So what I want to emphasize are 5 main hormones. And as I talk about this, I want you to pay attention to how the hormones and weight gain are intertwined. It pretty much influences all the activities that I just outlined, our metabolism, how we store fat. Yes, it's a real thing. So when our hormones are out of balance, you will see when I talk about all of them, how we tend to eat more and we accumulate more fat. I know right after I had my 3rd child, I was like, what is it with all this abdominal weight? I could not just lose it no matter how many crunches I did. And I was looking into all sorts of options. I remember going to inquire about or doing my own investigation online mind, how do they do tummy talks? How do they burn all these fats? And I quickly realized that yes, they could burn the fats at that moment, but it doesn't mean that the fat cells are still not there. So if the habits, you go back to business as usual, those fat cells can reaccumulate. So there's a lot of findings when it comes to fat cells and what influences it. So an increase in body fat affects the balance of many key hormones, right? Which can either make us gain weight most of the time or even lose weight. So when our hormones are balanced, we find it easier to eat less and put on less weight, right? So it's developing this healthy habit. So for me, and number one, it was expensive to do a tummy tuck. And I was like, if I do it and burn all the fat that I have at the moment, if I do not learn those habits, fundamental healthy habits, I would have wasted all that money. So in my mind, I know that developing healthy habits is really what sustains us because it will help to monitor my hormones and regulate it enough. So these 5 hormones that I'm going to be diving into, one is called ghrelin, okay, 2 leptin, 3 cortisol, 4 thyroid, and then the big one is insulin. So these are the hormones I'm going to be talking about. And not only do I explain the mechanism behind them, I'm also going to share how you can use them to your advantage. Okay, so understanding the hormones will help support your weight loss or your weight maintenance journey. All right, because you become more aware and how to take better control, right, and how to fit all of these into your day-to-day routine. So the first thing I want to talk about is ghrelin. So ghrelin, as the name implies, ghrelin. It's a hunger hormone, okay? It's produced in the lining of the stomach wall. And as the name implies, it makes us hungry. It makes us say, hey, you're hungry. If you've ever heard that grrr in your tummy, it's telling your body, your brain, you're hungry. Please go eat some food, okay? So most times we listen to it, right? Unfortunately, if we're so hungry and we haven't planned ahead, there's no amount of healthy choices that you're thinking about that would help you in that time. Anything that is in front of you is food. And that's how I always know that when kids are hungry, if they're truly hungry, they won't be making options about what they want to eat or what they don't want to eat because they're really hungry. They'll eat anything in front of them. I still believe that, even though some people might disagree. But back to ghrelin. So ghrelin is a hunger hormone produced in the stomach lining that signals your body that you're hungry and you need to eat food. We don't want to wait till very late when we're hungry because then we are probably gone into a starvation mode and then we want to eat so much. And that's what I used to do. I wouldn't eat regularly. And then when I'm ready to eat, I would eat a whole bunch. So we have to be very mindful of that. Another thing that happens is that when we calorie restrict, then same thing, don't eat in a long time. And then you're eating more food. So you have to be very careful because the less you eat, your ghrelin is actually going to keep increasing because it's like, are you not listening? I said, I'm hungry and you still haven't eaten. Then you're going to even feel more hungry because your ghrelin is going to increase and increase your desire for food. So during dieting and increase caloric deficit, the level of your ghrelin increases, especially, like the biggest losers and things like that. If you're really significantly calorie restricting, your ghrelin is going to go up. So you have to be very mindful of that. So how can you combat that? Please eat regularly. Even if you're doing intermittent fasting, your body is learned to do that, but stay hydrated, okay? Because the first thing that we feel when we're hungry is thirst because our body's made 70% water. So please make sure you have a healthy, nutritious snack or food packed so that you can grab it and you're not waiting to when you're absolutely starved, okay? So very, very important. Another disadvantage too, if we eat it in calorie restricting, we could eat into our muscle because muscle is a metabolic organ and it needs glucose. So you could lose muscle, all right? So to prevent this unwanted phenomenon of ghrelin, to make sure that you don't severely calorie restrict, okay? Eat between, well, I'm not going to say continuously eating because you will see when I talk about insulin, I'm just saying eat healthy amount of food that is, fruits and veggies, whole grains, legumes that keeps you full, okay? And when you do this, you're learning to balance your hormones, all right? So you certainly want to explore that. Now, let's talk about 2, leptin. Leptin is the opposite of ghrelin. Leptin is produced in the adipose tissue, right in the fat cells, and it plays a significant role in regulating your appetite, your body mass, and your energy. So how does it work? Whenever we are full, it signals the brain. So it's a hormone that signals the brain to say, okay, you're full, stop eating. Okay, yeah, stop eating, you're full. But do you know that there's a delay? There's a delay. So I think it's about 20 minutes delay. So for people that are fast eaters, I used to be a fast eater, always on the go, eating very fast, eating, not chewing well, not breathing in between. And there's a 20 minutes delay. So I've already eaten so much. And then all of a sudden my brain tells me, you've been full, you're eating too fast. And I feel so bloated. Anyway, we have to slow down, okay? And chew the food and not eat in a rush. So what tends to happen is when people are losing weight and the body notices, is like, oh my goodness, what's going on? Are we in a famine here? Okay, no, we got it, we're no longer full. So there's a reduction in the leptin level that occurs when you lose weight. So this means that you have fewer signals going to the brain to tell your body that you're full, which increases your appetite, inhibits weight loss. So yep, there you go.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode. My goal on this podcast is to empower, educate, and encourage you to take actionable steps to triumph at living at your finest, body, mind, and spirit. Of note, the information provided here is for educational purposes only and does not substitute as medical advice. Please discuss your healthcare needs with your licensed medical professional. If you are in need of a compassionate and comprehensive holistic physician or know someone who is, please reach out through my website, livewellness.com, for a meet and greet. It will be my honor to talk to you. Are we connected on social media yet? I share more in-depth content on best practices to ensure that you live at your finest daily. So please join me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube at Living at Your Finest Wellness, where we can learn together and stay connected. Lastly, please subscribe to iTunes if you have not done so already, and share the podcast within your circle of influence. An extra step? Leave a review and let me know what topics or discussions you would like to hear more of. Thanks in advance. It is always a thing of joy to hear from you. Now, let's get back to today's episode.
So you're feeling hungry, you're not feeling full quick enough. So for people, unfortunately, that struggle with obesity, that's why we say obesity is a complex problem. It is not just eat less, move more. It's a complex problem because there's what we call leptin resistance. Yes. So for people that are struggling with obesity or excess weight gain, the leptin levels are increased. And when it's increased, the body's like, oh, we have so much leptin, let's not respond. So there's that resistance, okay? So we have to be very, very mindful of this. And things that have been shown to help with leptin resistance is certainly you want to do more workouts, especially resistance training. It has been shown, evidence-based, to help with sensitivity of leptin, okay? So cardio, all those things will help with improve the leptin signaling and certainly help with weight loss management and weight maintenance. Let's talk about cortisol. Cortisol, you've probably heard a lot about cortisol. I know it does get a bad rap. Cortisol can be increased for so many things, right? It is a good hormone though, right? So cortisol is a stress hormone and it's used mainly for acute stress. So that is cortisol that is released during its time of stress, a fight or flight, just to enable us to get to do the things that we're supposed to do. But cortisol, as it hypes up, it's supposed to come down. Cortisol, when it's up, what it does, it decreases inflammation. It increases our metabolism of glucose in the body because we need it, right? For fight or flight, we need that glucose. So it helps with that. It also helps to control our blood pressure. But what happens when the perceived tract or whatever it is has gone away, we stay in that state of fight or flight continuously, then that cortisol is like, ooh, there's still danger. So there's glucose. So that's why we call it a fat storing, because if you still have glucose and you're not doing anything with it, there's glucose being produced, it has to go somewhere, right? Then it's stored as fat. That's weight gain, especially with women. I mean, men too. You have a lot of stress, you put that weight in your abdomen, that's where it sits, right? That's where it's favored. So you really have to be very careful to minimize stress and to move, to stay active, not to just sit down, right? Because if you're in a high cortisol and you're you're just sitting down, you have all that glucose storing as fat. But if you're moving about, then you're working out the glucose, right? You're calming yourself down. So other things that you can do to lower your cortisol is stress management, right? Breath work, mindfulness, calming down, talking slowly, because you want that cortisol to come down. You want it up when it needs to be up, and you want it down when it needs to be down. So breath work, I talk about the 4-7-8. I talk about the breathing, which is a new one that I learned from a colleague. And so all these things are very, very helpful in just cutting back cortisol. So you only have it when you need it. All right, let us talk about the remaining two hormones. Thyroid. A lot of people talk about thyroid this, thyroid that. We tend to refer to thyroid as the metabolism hormone. So it regulates our metabolism. It sits right here in the neck. Beautiful thyroid. It helps to regulate. And I know a lot of people blame their thyroid not functioning properly for slow metabolism, but just naturally as we get older, our metabolism slows down. Certainly in the evening, it slows down because we're really supposed to be getting ourselves ready for bed to sleep. Yeah, hint, hint, go to bed. Don't be staying up at night, eating food. All right. So the relationship between the hormone and the metabolism is so important for weight loss, right? Because as our metabolism burns calories to keep our bodies functioning. So if the metabolism is not working well, meaning it's too low, it's not going to do what it needs to do, or it's too high. So that's why you have people that have hyperthyroidism. The metabolism is ramped up. So they're having diarrhea, they're having palpitations, they're having sweaty, all that stuff. And the opposite is true if the thyroid metabolism is low. So they're not eating so much, but they're gaining so much weight. They have constipation, their skin is dry, everything is just slowed down. So the thyroid hormone, certainly we need to be very mindful of just how well controlled it is. Some people will naturally have slower or faster metabolism depending on your genes. So things that we've seen that has helped with that is eating a protein-rich diet, which helps to support our metabolism. Just remember that. Protein-rich diet. I prefer to eat plant protein. I mean, you certainly can eat animal protein, but just be very mindful of the cholesterol. If you're struggling with your cholesterol, there's a lot of protein in plants. So you want to do that. Beans, legumes, all of that. Whole grains like quinoa, oats, some of them have protein. HIIT exercises, the high intensity interview training, or just regular strength training are both great sources to increase your metabolism, right? It helps to ramp it up because it helps to increase muscle mass. When you have more muscle, you have more metabolism because our muscle is a metabolic organ and it burns calories even while we're at rest. Okay, insulin. The last one I'm going to be talking about is certainly there are more hormones, but those are the top 5. You probably have heard of insulin resistant. People talk about it all the time. Well, insulin is a hormone as well, and it's produced by the pancreas. So the pancreas is the beta cells in the pancreas, which whenever there's food, whenever we eat, which we have to eat to survive. So anytime we eat, what happens is that the pancreas is notified that it needs to release insulin because insulin helps to regulate our blood sugar levels, and it helps to convert that sugar into food. So that's what has to happen. Now, when our blood sugar rises and the insulin and the pancreas releases insulin, what it does is that the insulin helps the glucose enter into the cells, right? So it goes into the cells, used as energy, that's where it goes. But if for any reason your insulin is so overwhelmed, it's like, why you all just keep calling me? You just ate. I just came out to do this work and now you called me again. So each time you eat, you're eating, and it's coming and coming. Then after a while, there's a disconnect. It's like, okay, this is becoming too much. I can't do this. I'm just not even going to respond. It's like if you're talking to your child and you tell him not to do something and he's still doing it, you're going to raise your voice, and after a while, there's no response. So that's what we call insulin resistant. Whether there's just too much carbs or there's too much stress, because stress actually does cause your insulin not to respond. So there's so many things that has been attributed with insulin resistant, and certainly insulin, if there's too much sugar in the bloodstream, it's going to store as what? Fat. it's going to store as fat, and there's insulin resistant. So all these things, we need to be very mindful. If insulin resistance occurs, eventually leads to diabetes, right? Because there's so much sugar in the bloodstream, it's not going to the cells where it's needed as energy. And then there's all the complications because of the thick blood with sugar, and there's all that damage, not to talk about the inflammation that occurs. So that's just exactly the relationship between these 5 hormones we mentioned: leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, thyroid, and insulin. So the good news is, once we know better, we do better. Let us be very mindful of all these hormones and how they influence our weight loss. The key thing is keeping them all in balance. Things that help us: certainly sleep. Getting enough sleep will decrease our cortisol because your melatonin rises and your cortisol comes down. Being stressless, minimizing your stress outlet. If you need to go for a walk, do that, whatever it is. I know that going for a walk, listening to music helps to minimize my stress. Do those, and those make a difference in helping your weight. But if you don't arrest it, it's just going to keep piling and piling because you're eating too much, because you're hungry, you're not full enough, your metabolism is slowed down. So all those things really, really matter. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. Certainly, if you need additional support, I am here to help you. I have a direct primary care practice where I focus on lifestyle medicine, which is really just a medical approach that uses evidence-based behavioral interventions to keep you staying strong and healthy. So if you're in the Atlanta area, you want to sign up for the DPC practice, feel free to do so. Otherwise, I have courses that you can avail yourself of. And important thing is that you live at your finest well-being, because you are certainly worth it. So I hope that you take away something from each of those hormones, the 5. So one thing that you can do, if it is just moving more, drinking more water, eating more nutritious foods, breathing more, all of that will help to balance your hormones and make you feel and show up at your best. All right, so until next episode, I want you to take great care of yourself and do the best that you can. All right, take care and God bless.